call us to order at, Rich, you are, yes, recording. Call us to order at 7:01 p.m. And the first order of business, I just want to, hopefully Drew's out there. I want to thank Rescue Inc. And just the absolute amazing job they did.
That was cool.
Through all the whatever red tape you had to cut. I'm glad you did. Really, really appreciate it. And again, I don't know if you're out there, but hats off to you and all of your team that did such an amazing job getting so many people their first vaccination, and we'll have the ability to have that second vaccination in a few weeks, early April. So our staffs will be, all those that want to be, will be fully vaccinated. So really appreciate it. Drew, are you out there in the vast? No?
He's not on quite yet.
He's not on quite yet. Well, please pass along from all of us our great thanks.
I will.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to board norms. So our norms are to maintain our focus, communicate respectfully, be present, keep the board productive and effective, and respect the agenda. Those are our board norms. So getting to correspondence, we have a lot of correspondence. And the correspondence, or I should say a lot of the correspondence falls under two categories that are already on the agenda. The first one being school choice. We did get some correspondence about that. And we also got correspondence about an upcoming recommendation. And that is also part of our new business as well. A couple other things that we did get in correspondence were Chris Parker. Unfortunately has resigned, but he has left an amazing path forward for us with the farm to school. We paved the way with universal choice, which now the state is taking up. I think we definitely set the path for that, and Chris was a huge part of that. So really appreciate his services. I don't know if he's on, but definitely want to thank him for all that he's done for us.
Universal lunch, not universal choice.
Did I say choice?
You did.
Universal lunch. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Yes, and also part of our correspondence, we had Ellen Peters, who has been an amazing teacher between Jamaica and Townsend. She's served for 27 years, and we will definitely miss her presence in the community. And I don't know if she is on either, but again, hats off and thank you for everything that you've done. Really appreciate it. So, all right, and now moving on to members of the public. If there is something that you want to speak to that's on the agenda, if we could wait till that point that we're on the agenda. If not, certainly is now the time, if you do not see it on the agenda, to speak to something. And I do not see any hands raised, so I will move on to, sorry, this is that multitasking part, admitting people and trying to do this as well. Let's move on to new business. I'm sorry, no, before that. Student reports. I almost forgot student reports. How did I do that? So sorry. And before I do that, I just wanted to say that for any students that are interested, and I don't know if this would be applied to our student reps, but Bernie Sanders has an open forum tonight, which I know he is speaking about the pandemic and wants to hear from Vermont students. So that's at 7:30. And I don't know if people saw that, but I think it was on Facebook, and I know that it's on. It's going to be on YouTube. I think you had to sign up in advance. They had a maximum of 1,000 participants, but you can certainly watch it. So definitely a great thing to do if you have the time. 7:30. I'm not sure how long it runs. And also, so I will turn it over to Abby if Abby's here, but I believe I heard through the grapevine that a couple of our fine students, including you, Abby, were actually providing vaccines this last Friday. So thank you very much for that. And with that, I will turn it over to our students to report.
Hello, it's Abby. I actually was there on Friday. I was glad to be a part of that. And I hope now that, or once the teachers are fully vaccinated, that we'll be able to go back in school 4 to 5 days in person. I think that would be the best for the students and the teachers and everybody. So fingers crossed for that.
Great. Thanks, Abby. I appreciate it.
Hi, it's Ansley.
Hi, Ansley.
Things are getting better. We're more into like the routine school-wise. It's been over a month and it's gotten a lot better. And I totally agree with Abby. I'd love to be back 4 days a week if it's at all possible. But yeah, things are good.
Great. That's awesome. I'm sure it's great to see your friends and be back in school. All right. Well, thank you, Abby. Thank you, Ansley. Appreciate it. All right. Now moving on to the budget information presentation by Lori. And once again, she has outdone herself every year. It gets better and better. And Joe, if you want to share that, that would be great.
Great. Joe's going to share for me. That's perfect. Good evening, everyone. Let's talk through the fiscal year 22 budget and how it affects the tax rate in your community. So I would love some board participation here. If a board member wanted to read the next slide, which, go ahead and there we go, is the mission statement. Would somebody like to read that?
Go ahead, Joe.
I'm just about to. Okay, in the West River Modified Education District, all students will have an outstanding educational experience in a safe and welcoming environment so that they may achieve and surpass their learning goals. The West River Modified Education District is responsible to the needs of its community and provides the necessary systems, staffing, and resources needed to ensure that all of our students will become informed and empowered and engaged global citizens.
Thank you, Joe. I think it's always good to start off a budget presentation with talking about the mission statement. And the budget is developed with the mission statement in the forefront. So the next few slides, if you're new, these are just some fast facts about the district itself. If you're not new, then this will look familiar from last year with some updated numbers. Just to clarify, Joe, this was what I just sent you, right? In the email? I did update it. Okay,
This is the brand new, it said West River budget.
Yep, that's fine. I think we're good. I updated a few student numbers, so yeah, I think you're good.
Yeah, 31521.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thanks.
You got it.
Okay. So 3 elementary schools. It's actually 2 of them. There's one that has a universal pre-K, and then through grade 5, and then there's a middle high school, grade 6 through grade 12. So serving roughly 524 students in the district. Move on. Okay. Next. There we go. We have Newbrook that currently has 86 students, and Newbrook runs the straight grades, K through 5. Jamaica with 23 students, and theirs is a combined class, K 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Leland and Gray currently has an enrollment of 287, and that is grade 6 through 12. And Townsend right across the way with 98 students, and again, running straight grades. And this is where the pre-K is housed. The West River Education District values, again, another core piece of the budget, of putting together a budget. And these can be found, they're a little blurry here, so please go to the WRED website and you'll be able to read through them a little more clearly. And please stop me if anybody has any questions along the way. I'm happy to take questions as we go. So I won't read through all of these. I think that it's great to actually go onto the website and sort of focus on reading them. So Joe, we can go on to the next slide. There we go. So the budget development, as we talked about, you know, takes in the guiding principles and is based on the WRED values. Again, you know, looking for student-centered decisions, investing in a safe and functional physical plant. I mean, there was a lot of investing going on in the plant this year. Taking a long-term perspective, we'll talk about that later, but that is where the board was headed before COVID hit. And I'm going to try to actually not talk about COVID too much through this presentation. And then being transparent, putting things up on the website and being able to answer questions. Okay, we can go on to the next slide. So what's included in this particular fiscal year 22 budget? The tax rate was calculated using fiscal year 21's ADM as part of the hold harmless provision that was put in place in fiscal year 22. This is actually a fairly important thing to understand. The hold harmless provision was just put into place for this 1 year by the legislature in response to COVID and the counts of students that were dropping due to homeschooling students. And this was really important. And it was not, the ADM was not allowed to drop below what last year's census was. And so that actually really helped West River this year. Staffing changes that occurred after the fiscal 21 budget was approved. There were a number of staff changes after the budget was approved, and those can have a positive and a negative effect on a budget. And thankfully it was not, it really sort of washed itself out with that. We had estimated, negotiated, and non-certified staff yearly increases, benefit changes, which includes the 10% increase in premiums this year, and also the application of the new mandated healthcare law. 10% actually has been the lowest it's been for a few years now. So that was, as much as we hate to see that 10% number, it was actually good this year. Increases and decreases from the approved WCSU superintendent's budget and special ed budget, and then the fee for service budget, or formerly known as the agency fund. So those, the superintendent and the special ed both returned a reduction over fiscal year 21's assessment. So that played in the favor of this particular budget. We made some adjustments where was applicable. Increases based on repairs and maintenance. This we did put in HVAC maintenance estimates that we received from the company that did a lot of the repairs. It's a yearly maintenance fee to keep them at top notch. And of course, there's more HVAC work to be done, but we've put those maintenance costs in the budget. Recommendation by the budget committee to use $300,000 of fund balance to reduce the tax burden. We'll talk about that a little further on in the presentation. And it was also decided to reduce one administrator. So where did that all get us? Okay, So the year over year expense budget comparison is up $80,000 or less than 0.66. And on the West River website is the whole detailed budget. So please feel free to go on there and you can see all the line items that the increases and the decreases. So not too bad. I mean, that's pretty good for a 1-year increase. But where we, found that there was an issue was actually in the revenues. So last year's revenue were the $1.3 million there. And then for fiscal year 22, they dropped off significantly. And so part of the drop off was due to tuitioning students. So to give you some idea of what the drop off has been is, in fiscal year 21, we estimated about 45 tuitioning students coming into Leland and Gray, and we invoiced approximately 30. So you can see there was a drop off there. For fiscal year 22, we're estimating 29 students that will come in. So this really was about $280,000 of that decrease. The other decrease or reduction was some different grants, some Medicaid funding and that type of thing that just have reduced over time. So that's where the board decided, the budget committee made a recommendation to the full board to use $300,000 out of fund balance to balance out the budget as a 1-year stopgap. So that brought back a unified tax rate of $1.96, which was less than the unified tax rate last year. So that was good news. That includes the 4-cent merger incentive as well. Now remember that because you merged voluntarily, that there has been merger incentives every year. So next year's 2 cents and then we're down to 0. So that is another item to think about in long
Little shrimp. Shrimp. Vegetables over.
Okay. Next slide, Joe. Thank you. So let's talk about the reserves because, $300,000 is, a pretty good chunk of change to be putting towards reserves. But over the last couple of years, West River has had a couple of good surpluses. So the $624,000 was moved into the operational reserve. So using 300 would leave West River with $324,000 for future years. Now, typically you like to be somewhere between 5 to 10%. I know Al and I talk about this all the time, like what's that number? And that this will drop below the 5% of the total expense budget. But this year in fiscal year 21, we are also projecting to have some amount of surplus as well. So we're not looking at a deficit. So that will increase the operational fund balance. Probably not back up to the 600, but it's, it'll be headed in the right direction. So what does using the reserves do? It in this case lowered the tax rate by 10 cents. And it also, in doing that, reduces the penalty by $586 per pupil. So it was an important move for the board to make to get through this year in this budget process. So let's just look at the last couple of budgets. So fiscal year 20 was the first year of the merger. And last year, we saw a 2.88% increase in expenses, and this year 0.66. So just to give you some basic, concept of where this, budget goes year after year. And what are the major functions that this budget has in it? So, you know, almost 60% is direct instruction to the 524 students that you saw before. You know, then support services, which are the nurse and the guidance counselors and all of those types of things. There's board and administration, of course, and then technology, building, operations, transportation, food service, and debt. Those are the major functions that this budget is broken down to. So the other 40% is broken up into those other categories. Another thing to note is the debt service. So one of the reasons that the budget, you know, isn't up more is the HVAC for Newbrook was paid off. So that was a savings of about $66,000 in this budget year. So that's good news. And the biomass will be paid off in fiscal year 25. So that's about 90,000. So that's, you know, things to look forward to in the long-term planning process. All right. Any questions so far? Got a little lull here. All right, hearing none. I don't see hands, so if somebody's going to have to tell me if there's a hand. All right, so how do we get to a tax rate? So many of you have seen these slides that I've done before, just kind of breaking down the calculation of how to get to a tax rate. And so we take the total expenses of $12 million and we take off all those offsetting revenues, which does include the $300,000 of fund balance in that number as well. And that gets us to the $10.8 million of money that needs to be raised by the taxpayers. And then we talk about the equalized pupils. So and this goes back to what I was saying earlier about the hold harmless provision that was put in place because of COVID, is that last year's equalized pupil was 512.91, and this is 512.19. So very little change. Had the ADM number been allowed to drop, this number would have been lower, and of course that means the tax rate would be higher. So that was an important move. So that returns a cost per student of $21,138. So we take that, and we look, we compare it against what the threshold, which is what the state put in place as a cost containment measure. So basically, if you spend above $18,789, you're going to pay a penalty. And so the amount over the threshold is $2,300, $2,349. There are some things that are allowed to be excluded from that penalty. And so one of them is the debt that you pay. So that's important to note. There's a couple of other ones that are sort of obscure, but we take every little exclusion that we can find to reduce that penalty. So the penalty that's being added to the cost per student is $1,706. So that returns a cost per student of $22,844. So that's the number you're going to see on your warning. So I'm going to take a side road here because there's something in the legislature right now that's really important. And I really want to talk about it for a few minutes here. So without the threshold, let's say that there was not a threshold, and which would mean there was obviously not a penalty. So the cost per student would be $21,138, right? We're not adding any penalty to it. That would return a tax rate of $1.82 versus the $1.96 that the tax rate is projected to be currently. So, and that does include the 4-cent merger on both sides. So that's 14 cents less than the current projected tax rate, just for the penalty. This is important. I mean, a lot of districts are pushing up against this penalty. So there's some action you can take. If you go to the WRED website, there's a sample letter, I think is what it is, basically. Contact your local state representative. And then WCSU, as the super board, also wrote a letter that is in support of the weighting implementation. So S13, I believe it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, is looking at redistributing weights, which would basically increase the equalized pupils in West River and a lot of other SUSDs in Southern Vermont. So this is important. So, you know, make sure you go to the WRED website and look that up. All right, so because there's still a penalty, we are going to stick with the $22,844, and the state set the yield. Originally, it was $10,663. It was a while ago now. I'm not sure if I have that right, but ultimately, after the preliminary budgets were submitted to the state, the Joint Fiscal Office was able to increase that yield to $11,385. That was a great move. So basically, the unified tax rate would have been $2, but you have the incentive, which is 4 cents. So that's how we get to that $1.96, almost $1.97 there. All right, so then we take that $1.96 and we have to run it through each individual town's CLA. This also had a major impact on particularly Brookline and Jamaica this year. And these are the current ones for fiscal year 22. And the CLA is a calculation done by the tax department through an equalization study. So let's go on to the next slide and we'll see where the fluctuations have happened. So in fiscal year 21, the actual homestead tax rate for Brookline was $1.78, and this year post CLA is $1.95, so 17 cents or 9.64% increase. So had the CLA, if you keep reading across, you're going to see what happened to the CLA, right? So interestingly, in Brookline, the previous year, in fiscal year 20, it was at about 100%, and then it went up to 105, almost 106, and now it's back down to 100. So, you know, that causes the tax rate to fluctuate. And had the CLA stayed at that 105, their tax rate would be up 2 cents. So you can see that the CLA has a major, major impact on what a town pays. So even though the board worked so hard to keep their tax rate low, this is what happens. In Jamaica, the same thing. Their CLA went down almost 3%. So this had a major impact. They probably would not have even had an increase had it stayed the same, and Newfane and Townsend basically did stay the same. All right, in their CLAs. So if you own property, there are 2 ways that you are going to pay the income tax or the property tax. So if your household earns less than $136,500, which this may have been updated, the threshold may have been updated. I'm not sure that I have the number in there, or I've seen it yet. Then you will be eligible for state payments, or something that's called a property tax adjustment. So on your property tax bill, you'll see that property tax adjustment. If your household earnings are less than $47,000, then you are not paying on local spending. You are paying only on income. Okay, so there's 47, 48 and above, local spending does affect what you pay. Households with income above 136 don't qualify for the property tax adjustment. So let's see, I think I have an example here. All right. So we're going to talk about the Sam household. The Sam household earns $50,000 between all the members of the household, and they reside in Townsend. The homestead that they live in is worth about $200,000. So in the previous year, the Sam household would have paid $1,675 in property taxes after a credit to their tax bill of $1,893. Okay. In this proposed year, the household would pay $1,782, so an increase of $108 in property taxes. Their property tax credit goes up, but their tax bill also goes up. And these are generalized. It's actually your anything to do with the property tax credit or income sensitivity is actually a year behind. So it's really hard to make comparisons because they're dealing with data that is a year behind. So, you know, as far as the income data. Okay, so then the Chris household earns $150,000 and they reside in Jamaica. The homestead they live in is worth $200,000. So in fiscal year 21, they would have paid $3,973. And in fiscal year 22, will pay $4,070. So $97 more per year based on that $200,000 house, or 2.5% more. All right, because Brookline was hit so hard with their CLA, I wanted to run through the same scenario with Brookline. So you can see in Brookline, same scenario, $150,000, $200,000 house. In fiscal year 21, they would have paid $3,568, and in fiscal year 22, $3,913. So $344 more. Which is the 9.6% that you saw on the previous slide that was the increase. And that's, you know, again, I'll say mainly due to the CLA change. So what's the next steps for everybody that's on this call, I would assume, that resides in one of these towns? It's vote. Get out March 24th and vote. This year, which is wonderful, on the ballot will be one article for a pre-K through 12 budget. So that is much, much less confusing for the voters. So we are looking forward to that. So before I sort of wrap up here, I wanted to talk a little bit about future planning. As I've mentioned it, the board was in the process of doing some future planning, the budget committee and the board. And, you know, as my granddaughter says, the germy bug hit. So if you want to just flip to the next slide, Joe, we'll just kind of walk through, you know, why it's important. So the first thing we have to look at is the student count projections, right? We know we've been talking about this for a long time, and we did think that things were starting to level out. So, you know, this was not really a surprise, but a little bit more dismal than we've seen in the past. And again, part of this is just the tuition students not coming in, and then just, you know, people moving around, and that happens. This projection, which, you know, is basically saying that 9% drop, or a 9% drop in students over 8 years, is taking into consideration or projections of 36 students coming in for pre-K per year. So that might be aggressive. So this might be even, could be worse, or there could be some influx of students elsewhere. But it's important to understand where you're at so that you can do some accurate planning. All right, so the budget committee and the full board, they were meeting last spring, and we presented, I think it was 11 or 12 restructuring options that would basically reset the tax rate. It was really, there were a lot of options out there on the table. And there were some that were quickly just dismissed, and then others that we did a deeper dive on, and then they were dismissed. So it was really kind of down to 3 options, which, I think we have to go back to almost back to the drawing board, really. But there were about 3 options that with the intent to do a deeper dive. And again, like I said, so the board made the decision to, considering the disruption, to not pursue any structural changes or any really major changes for fiscal year 22. It just, everybody had a lot on their plates. The community had a lot going on, parents and teachers and students. But the budget committee and the full board, they've committed, if you've watched any of the videos in the past, they've committed to continuing this work that was started last spring. Will start up again in this spring. So what's your role? And I'm talking to all the people that are not board members on the call at this point. In future planning is your valued input, to contact your board representative and talk through what's important to you. What's your dream, really? And then I am sure there will be surveys coming out when the board gets back to doing this long-term planning to guide decisions. And, I want to encourage everybody to have a voice and to fill these out. And I put the board's emails right there, so they're easy for you can click on them and go ahead and write to each one. And then this is our future right here. And when I shared this with, I think it was the Al and Joe and Mike, I said I couldn't bring myself to put any masked kids. So these are the same pictures as last year. So, but this looks normal. This looks good. So I'm happy to take any questions about any of the presentation or any other questions that you have.
All right, I'm looking for hands, Lori. Anybody? Oh, there we go. I see a couple hands.
All right.
Let's go with Keegan and then Dana.
Lori, I just have to say thank you. Your presentation of this year's budget was amazing. I think it really tells the story of what we're planning to do, what we're trying to do. And I appreciate the informative and well-balanced approach that you included. So thank you so much. I think our towns will definitely appreciate hearing what you had to say and the format that you presented it in. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's about team, right?
Thanks, Keegan. Dana?
I just wanted to reminder, Lori, the Jamaica taxpayer does not have the 4% incentive anymore, right?
So I didn't put any incentive slides in because basically everybody loses the incentive.
Okay.
So when the yield went up to $11,385, it really did basically drop everybody below. So in essence, you would have had to keep the incentive, you would have had to add money to the budget. So you know, I think with the long-term planning that has been talked about, is projected to happen in the future, it would have happened next year anyway. So nobody is eligible for the incentive.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Don't you mean not incentive, right? Hold harmless is what we lost.
The 5%.
The 5% hold harmless is
no,
what
you're
the
right.
merger incentive
Yeah.
still goes with everybody for the full term of the combination.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. That's a great point. Yes. It's the hold harmless.
Right.
All right. Any other hands? Well, oh, Emily.
Sorry, I'm on Zoom so often, you'd think I'd know where to look for my whole raise hand. But Lori, I just wanted to ask a quick question about the federal stimulus package, because I happened to be on a meeting just before this one where I got a number that was an eye opener. I'm just going to give you the number and see whether you're hearing the same things that I'm hearing. But 293 million for Vermont K-12 schools. And I have a breakdown for school districts as well. And I'm not sharing that one yet but I wanted to just get you to react.
Yes, and that is what I believe the stimulus package is called ARPA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is that particular stimulus package.
That was 293 million additional
for Vermont schools.
Right.
The K-12. I don't know whether it includes pre-K. What the information I have, and again, Lori, this is all just really new, so it was just a really eye-opening number for me, and so I just thought with this new American Recovery Act that we have coming in, whether you had any update. You probably don't. Rules are not even going to be written on this for who knows, some of them may not be written until October, so we don't really know how it's going to break down, but it really does look quite significant support from the federal government for our K-12 schools. And I just wanted to mention that.
And just to put perspective on that, isn't the entire budget around 1.2 billion for all K through 12, give or take? I mean, so I'm just like that's a huge chunk. That's like 1/4 of
oh, you mean at the state level?
Yeah.
Right. So that's the third stimulus package, and Bill can probably jump in here. The first one was something like 57 million total for that. Yeah.
First one was 59 million. The second one was 123, and the next one is 290.
Right.
And the first one was dominant in PPE and getting prepared to open schools in Vermont. The second one, we just got the allocation for the supervisory union, and we have been discussing that for about 3 or 4 days, and that will be focused on our recovery plan. So preparing our world for students coming back and preparing our environment, preparing our services. And we have an entire leadership team meeting on Wednesday discussing that. So that is the second one. And so the third one is what you're mentioning, Emily, and that one goes out till FY24. And that is going to be the opportunity to really do some generational change. We are really looking at how can we invest that money for the benefit of our region, our area for a generation. So Stephanie Beatty-Hancock, our Director of Special Education, is one of the steering committee members of working with a regional group to look at creating a regional collaborative program between Windsor and Windham counties to provide services for our students that will meet their needs without traveling outside of the state. Sometimes we don't have critical mass of students, and we need to work with other districts and other supervisory unions. This would allow us to actually create an infrastructure so that that could happen seamlessly at the exact same time that Act 173 is being implemented. So we are really looking at how we can make some generational change in the next 3 to 4 years with this influx of investment.
Wow, that is great news. I do have another hand, Shelley Bostrom.
Hi, let me put my video on so you can see me. I was wondering, Lori, about the HVAC numbers, if those are included in the budget?
So the HVAC maintenance, the yearly maintenance costs, that's what I was referring to, is we did put those into the budget. So, and they were significant, you know, for different schools, it could be $10,000 a year just to keep them up to snuff, so to speak. All of the HVAC work that happened in all of the schools across the SU was done through Efficiency Vermont grants. So that does not include anything, that's not included in the budget. And further HVAC work is not included in the budget. It is estimated that around $15 million will go to Efficiency Vermont to continue the HVAC work, upgrades and repairs. And we have our name in and often for that money. So does that answer your question, Shelley?
Yes, but I was also wondering, because you said 66,000 was paid off.
Yes.
Is that because of our solar fields, or?
So that was, you had a, right, and Ken actually could really give us a good history lesson here, but Newbrook's HVAC was, or had a system installed actually several years ago. And so Newbrook borrowed money to have that done, and it was absorbed by West River, and that was paid off. So that freed up some debt that was in the budget.
Great, thank you. That answers my question.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, no, seeing none. Lori, thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. Really, really appreciate it. You pull all the pieces together and make it easily understandable, and I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, moving on to elementary school choice. So that was part of our correspondence. We did have a letter from Lisa Mann. I don't know if Lisa is on, but just to kind of talk about school choice a little bit. That was a huge undertaking of our study committee back when we were forming all of this, and was really important. The fact that we're forming a brand new district that we would allow, and the parents were obviously involved in this as well. We wanted to have school choice. So the study committee took that up. And we have been doing it now for 3 years. And so, Bill, can you tell me just how many applications we have this year and how it's working this year?
Yeah, so this is our 3rd year. The first year we did it in the fall because it was the beginning year. And then we did our policy so that it happens every March. So we are in the middle of it right now. As of today, we have 9 applications. We accept applications during the month of March. And then we look at if those applications can be approved based on the class size guidelines that the WCSU adopted in 2017 and the school intra-school choice committee decided upon when it was formed in 2017. And so we have 9. And I have not looked at whether they can be approved or not based on space. We're going to have to wait, kind of get a better feel for how many people are coming back and not coming back. So I want to be a little bit conservative, but right now pretty good distribution. Out of those 9 applications, you would have Newbrook being 1 less student, you would have Jamaica being 2 less students, and you would have Townsend Elementary adding 3 students. So not a lot of variation out of 9. But yeah, we accept all the applications in March, and then we process them through the policy, and then we let families know in April and May.
All right. Did anybody else have any discussion about school choice? All right, I see 3 hands. I see Ken, Dana, and then Keegan. Ken, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. I'm used to you guys muting and unmuting me. With the big HVAC project that's going to be happening in Townsend, do we have the air capacity at this point to add more students to the building? Because we have to look at that in the future, because this isn't the only bug that's going to be going around, I have a feeling.
I guess, Ken, I would say that we'd probably want to push that back to the school choice committee and see if that they would like to augment the existing choice class size guidelines to include a firm number that the board agrees upon. But that has not been done yet, but I think that's a good consideration for the board to discuss long term.
Well, it's at this point, COVID is still around. There are variants going around. Just today, another high school closed down up north due to approximately 20 COVID cases at the high school up in Franklin County. And my concern is that the air quality is a big thing. You gotta have that fresh air exchange, and if we don't have that, we shouldn't. That should mandatorily from now on be a consideration for any building as far as what the class sizes should be. We should regulate them around the airflow exchange. If we don't have proper airflow exchange, we can't put that many students in a room. I mean, it even helps out during flu season, let's face it.
Thanks, Ken. And I would certainly say, Ken, you were a huge proponent of this all along, and appreciate everything you've done for that. All right, Dana, and then Keegan.
I'll let Keegan go first.
Thanks, Dana. I'm wondering, do we run the risk of having too few students enrolled in a particular school that would make a sustainable, teacher to student ratio not possible? Is it possible? Let me rephrase my question. Is it possible that too few kids could unenroll from a local town school to go somewhere else within the district that would make that particular school not a financially responsible thing to have happen? Or are these decisions about moving kids from one school to another based on something other than just not wanting to have too few kids in a classroom?
That is not currently part of the policy. So I would say that that would be a board recommendation for the policy committee to explore and then come back and make a recommendation to the board. But that is not currently a part of the decision-making process in the policy.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dana.
Yeah, I wanted to throw on top of Keegan's statement there. I want to know how effective of an education we're giving to the kids who are in those combined grades. I just want to know, are we given the same equal education that we're given in the other 2 elementaries when we have 3 through 5 and K through 2? Are we really given due diligence and education to those kids?
I would say that it's a very difficult question to answer in the sense that in Vermont and in our area, we operate schools in a variety of manners. So we have schools in our supervisory union that have K through 6 and 1 teacher. We have schools that have 1 grade per teacher. We have schools that have 2 grades per teacher. We have schools, 2 grades per teacher. We have schools, as in Jamaica, we have 3 grades per teacher. So I guess it would be inherent in the board deciding what is the measure. Is it test scores? Is it parent satisfaction? Is it youth surveys? I think it's a very large question that you would want to dig into, or possibly, consider how you would want to ask that question to us. But I don't think there's a simple answer to that. Different communities value different things and have over the years. And I would be happy to explore that, but I would want some parameters and direction about what kinds of things you would want considered. Kind of like Keegan's financial question. What are the data points that the board is interested in putting value on? And then happy to have my team and my colleagues do some work around that, but it's going to be, we'll need some specific guidance about what data points you value and how to weigh those.
Okay, I was just kind of, testing and stuff. It's just that we seem to be standalone with this model up here within our district. So I just want to make sure that everybody is on, this whole thing was supposedly equal education for every kid. Everybody got the same education. And it's kind of not. So, and that's why I think some of Ms. Mann's complaints were that her kids are not getting what a kid in Townsend or Newfane would be getting, or Newbrook. So
I think no, Dana, I think your question along with Keegan's question are the kinds of things that you guys have been wrestling with in your long-term planning. How many buildings do you want to operate, and what is the things that you want to offer? What are the rules and guardrails around movement of students to keep those, whatever you decide upon as guardrails, to keep those in place? And these are the big questions, and I think they're great to ask. And again, I and my colleagues are happy to do the work, but we're going to definitely need some guidance on how to weigh what it is a community values, so that we can give you the kind of information you would like, so that you guys can make those hard decisions.
We'll get into it in the long-term planning. I know.
Yeah, but I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's absolutely important, Dana, and I appreciate both you and Keegan bringing them up, because these are the kinds of things that are going to have to be weighed.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure she was heard, Ms. Mann. I mean, she was sending emails to us, and I wanted to make sure that it's out there. So.
Well, Dana, she followed Lori's advice from slide 17. Contact your local representatives.
Yes, she did.
And make sure that they communicate about how you're creating a budget and how you're doing future planning. So this is exactly what boards should be doing. So no, I very much.
Oh, she followed Lori's advice. She did. That's what we want. Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. Any other discussion on this?
Oh, I am operating under the principle during pandemic that families that have enrolled or not enrolled have done AOE home study during the pandemic, that they are not going to lose their designation as that's their home school. So if I live in Newbrook, but I went to Jamaica for first grade, and then in second grade, I decided during the pandemic, I cannot be in school, I would like to participate in AOE home study, that student doesn't revert back to where they were 2 years ago. They revert back to where they were when they were last in school. That is the operating principle I'm going under. It may not affect an enormous amount of people, but I think that is the appropriate way to approach. And so I just wanted to inform the board that I'm approaching it in that manner.
All right, thanks, Bill. And that's actually a perfect segue into the next discussion point, full-time in-person instruction update. Bill, do you have a recommendation?
Sure. So I'm here to make a recommendation to the West River Board. I made a similar recommendation to the River Valleys Board on Monday, and there was an article written about that recommendation I made. And when I was asked at that meeting, am I making this recommendation to other elementary schools in the WCSU? I answered yes. So I just wanted to put that out there that I was planning always to come forward to your board at your meeting and make this recommendation independently to you, but it did get out in the press, and my thinking hasn't changed from when I made that recommendation and planning to make this recommendation. So I am making the recommendation that 6 weeks from now, on April 26th, that the West River Education Elementary Schools K through 5 go back to 5 days in person, full days. Now, I don't make this recommendation lightly because that does affect 15% of our students who are currently enrolled in school supported home study. So for 28 of the 36 weeks, which will be the date on April 26th, everybody has made accommodations, not going to school 5 days a week. But I am recommending that to the board that we do go back on April 26th, full day, 5-day in person. I make this recommendation for several reasons. We do have 6 weeks to make this transition. Our staff is anybody who wanted to be vaccinated will be vaccinated by April 26th. We've had demonstrated success in all of our mitigation strategies, really incredible work of all of our teachers and staff and our principals, leading to very mitigated environments. As Ken mentioned earlier, we have repaired and refreshed all of our HVAC systems, and we continue to do that. Going to Shelley's question about making sure we have the maintenance in there, and going to Lori's point about continuing to do that work, not only in the budget, but also through the next round of Efficiency Vermont work. In-person instruction really does provide some really beneficial social and emotional health to students. And really importantly, after April 26th, we have 39 instructional days left. And by transitioning to 5 days in person, it allows our teachers to be completely focused on those 39 days. These 39 days are extremely important after the year that we've had. And to allow our teachers to be completely focused on in-person instruction and not have to split their energy, split their brains, and split their minds by teaching 2 separate groups, one that are in front of them and one that are remote, I think is an opportunity that we don't want to miss. We do have warmer weather that is coming up, and so the outside learning that was occurring in September can be replicated and taken advantage of. Recently, through the good work of the leadership of Scott Tabachnik at Newbrook, along with his colleagues, we've been working with the Agency of Education, trying to plan some transition for the 15% of students that would not have school supported home study in its current form available after April 26th. We have received permission from the AOE to provide materials and curriculum to those families so that that is a barrier that we could support them in, overcoming that barrier. Actually, I'll just ask Scotty, we are doing some planning right now to do some transition support. Really that came about from some really good advocacy from parents. Very respectful, very thoughtful letters coming directly to me, coming to the board, about things to consider, about things that were disappointing, about things that the board and myself and our colleagues have to wrestle with. So I don't, again, look to try to disrupt people's lives, but I do believe that our goal all along has been trying to get back to a sense of typical school 5 days a week, and I think we have an opportunity on April 26th to make that happen. Scotty, I don't know if you want to just add a little bit about kind of our transition planning. I know not everything is exactly buttoned down, but I want people to understand kind of the thinking that we're doing to try to support this transition.
Sure, Bill. And Bill and I both agree. I mean, the families that had been keeping their kids at home, that have been keeping their children at home, I had 18 families, and I started calling them last week and trying to figure out what the extent of the planning, how far we needed to go. First of all, what I found out was some of these families felt a little disrespected because of the fact, and I really don't blame them, because of the fact that a lot of their choice to stay home was very altruistic. They knew that we didn't have room in the schools for every kid. You know, we needed to be 6 foot. So a lot of these families kept their children home knowing that they could afford to do so. Maybe they had one person that didn't work, or maybe they had a grandma that could help out, or there were lots of reasons. And so they really were just helping the community by keeping their children at home. That was one aspect. Another thing is that 3 of these families have people in their households who are either immune compromised due to illness or due to their age. So for these families saying, come back to school, it's a matter of life or death for them. So I really want you to think about that when you're considering Bill's proposal, which I totally support Bill's proposal, but I think that we really need to be sure that we respect these families that have been doing us right all along, and that we keep in mind that they're not willy-nilly. These people they're not going to the beach. I mean, they are locking down because they have an elder or someone who's sick in their house. I also want to say that the state has already told us that if we go back to 5 days, we're going to have to unenroll these kids. And so Bill and I have been trying to figure out ways of making that easy. And so what we came up with, and this is very fresh, so it's not set in stone, but I would like to hire somebody who's a qualified teacher. And I would like to put that person in place as the liaison. So they will help the families to get enrolled in official home study with the state. And then they will act as the liaison. They'll go and collect work and disseminate the work. And this is really we're not going to be grading. These are home study kids, but we are going to be providing curriculum materials. We're going to be providing opportunities to mix with kids socially. So, what we've been doing is I just started reading to the SSHES kids, and these will be unenrolled kids in a month and a half, reading to them once a week and having them join together with me and socialize. Hannah Parker, our excellent counselor, has also started a K-2 and a 3 to 5 social group for those children. And I've asked our teachers to please try their best to invite the kids that are still at home into whatever they can invite them into. And I think that those things are really important. I love that Bill just said that. So if one parent was concerned that if they unenrolled, that they'd end up having to go to a different school when they came back in. And I really appreciate Bill clarifying that family will feel very relieved. I think that we can pull this off. I think that it'll be cost effective. And I mean, it'll cost us a little bit of money, but we have ESSER's money for these types of hurdles. And that way our teachers can focus on the children in front of them, and the parents can continue to work with their children in the excellent way they have been. I also want this person to be kind of a advocate for these families. So making sure that if we do end up having like a field day, that they'd be invited and encouraged to come in. The reason why, and this is the last thing I'll say, the reason why I believe that we should go to 5 days on April 24th is because, and that as many people should bring their kids in as they can, is for the same reason that I always suggest April 24th, like the day after spring break, as a good time to transition if you've moved to a new community. And that's because children need to know where they're going in the fall, and they needed to know it and see it and appreciate it well beforehand. Otherwise, summer could be kind of anxious for them. And what I want to do is bring as many kids in as we can, teach them how to mask, teach them how to distance, teach them how to play without touching. All of those things that we have learned since October, a lot of them haven't learned those kinds of things yet. And I really want to encourage them to come in. We had 21 SSHS kids at the beginning of the year. We were down to 18 last week. As of April 27th, when we go back, hopefully 5 days a week, I'm only going to have 8 children in 6 households that still need to stay home. And I believe that I could take care of them at a nice price by hiring somebody to do so and to work with the teachers to get the materials. Is that what you had in mind, Bill?
Scotty, that is great. I just want to make sure that we respect that we're talking about 3 schools. All 3 schools are set up in different ways, but what we're talking about is making sure that we are providing some transition support in 2 specific ways. One would be the process of getting signed up for AOE home study and supporting families through that process. And then 2 is between April 26th and June 14th would be to provide materials and curriculum so that the families do not have to go out and start that on their own. They can continue on what they're working on, but the families would be responsible for their own grading. The families would be responsible for their own attendance because they would be unenrolled from the school so that we could focus on this, what appears now to be about 90% of the students that would be in person as of today.
And the principals, we're offering tours to these families because I think it's really important. Some of the kids are worried, like I just toured a little girl today in my school, and she'd been at her house for a year, hadn't worn masks much, I don't think, because she was at home all the time. And so it's important for the kids to see what we do and to see, we're very, very careful in our schools, and we really care about the kids, and we're distanced and we're masked and we're very careful. And we're very clean as well. And I just wanted her to visualize that. And once she saw it, she calmed right down and she said, I want to come in 2 weeks, So I'm really excited to get as many kids back as we can. However, I am very aware that parents have really good reasons for keeping their kids home too. And we need to make sure that we take care of them as well. And include them in everything we can. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Scotty. Let's start with, I know we had a lot of correspondence on this. I see some board members with questions first, and then we will jump into the parents who provided correspondence. So let me just start with Lindsay, Leanne, and then Keegan.
Thanks, Al. So I just want to say thank you to the administration for putting so much thought into the process. I really feel like this is a good solution, and I feel like it's doing about as good as you possibly can in meeting everybody's needs. I think it is really important to get the 90% of the kids that are already in person, as much in-person time as we can get them. I think that's helpful for families as well. And I know we keep talking about the SSHS families and the potential sacrifice that is going to arise here for them, but it is also a benefit to the other 90% of the families. That being said, as a parent who removed her children from school this year to do a homeschool program, not the school-supported home study, I just would like to tell anybody out there who's considering that as an option, it is not a complicated process. It seemed a little scary as an idea for getting registered or whatever, but it's not a big deal. It's an easy process, and I love that the administration is providing support for it. So I just think that it may seem intimidating because it did to me, but I just want you to know that it's not so bad. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you for that support, Lindsay. Leanne, and then Keegan.
Lindsay said a lot of what I was going to. I was another parent that opted to unenroll and go the homeschool route this year. And it's really not as daunting, especially if there's going to be any support offered from the school. The biggest, if the materials are being provided, assistance with the MCOS on the forms, it really shouldn't be too much of a scary process for these families. It should go, I would hope, pretty smoothly. There also is a waiver this year for the end of year assessment, which is some more paperwork off these parents' plate. So I just wanted to throw those tidbits out there as someone with new experience to the homeschooling world. Thanks.
Thanks, Leanne. Keegan? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm sorry about that. I have a few questions, and I'm also hoping that I'm hoping to have a better understanding if this is just to confirm the suggestion of reopening 5 days, or if there is some wiggle room to talk about an alternative or alternative solutions or modifications to the current plan as Bill is presented. So I'll ask my questions first. To clarify, this would only impact the 3 elementary schools. That would be K-5. So the high school would still remain with its current 2 days in, Wednesday off, 2 days on the end, or is this going to impact having like the high school kids, excuse me, in person 5 days a week, full time as well?
This only impacts K through 5 until distancing changes happen in the high school. 6 feet to 3 feet, we don't really have any wiggle room. However, we are planning in preparation for that change as the signals coming from the Vermont Department of Health and the AOE and the governor's office of a review of the guidance appears to be imminent, more than likely the second week of April. So Bob and Johanna and the team at Leland and Gray are already doing some planning and preparation. As we heard from our 2 student members at the beginning of the meeting, they are very interested in increasing it from 2 and beyond. So we are already doing that planning, but simple answer is yes, just K through 5.
Okay. My next follow-up question, and I don't know if this would fall under a HIPAA protected question or not. Since we have been in school, since the children have been on campus, have you had any students in these 3 different elementary schools to test positive with COVID-19? Have you had 6 children on campus?
I could not answer that question.
Okay. Following up on that, and thinking about like I've been reviewing and really feeling where the parents are coming from, because when you think about the total amount of time that the children have been home, many of them, I'm assuming, have been out since March of last year. We're coming up on a full year of remote learning for a lot of students. And then we're looking at the final 5 weeks of school, 40 days or so, 39 days through the end. Let me rephrase. So Scotty had mentioned the possibility that there would be 8 families or 8 students that would remain in their homes and not return to on-campus learning.
He's speaking specifically to Newbrook. There are 8 confirmed in Newbrook. We have 7 in Townsend that have either not responded to our call, are undecided, or have told us that they are staying home. And we have the same number in Jamaica that have either not responded, are still deciding, or have communicated that they are staying home. So it is a total of 22 out of 204 students.
Okay. So here's my follow-up question. Scotty had mentioned the possibility of perhaps at Newbrook taking on a elementary teacher to begin April 26th through the end of the school year to kind of serve as that liaison between the on-campus learning or the collection of materials and the support of parents to help continue that process. Since there are going to be 22 elementary kids in the entire district, would you consider taking on a teacher role, only instead of it being a space or place-based person at Newbrook specifically, could you have a district-wide single teacher that would be able to oversee the learning of 22 students? That way the kids wouldn't necessarily have to be unenrolled from our district. They could maintain their status as students, or is that not even a possibility?
No, it's definitely something that Scotty and I and our colleagues talked about. The difference is that we would then be responsible for instruction of K through 5, full days, So you can imagine what that would look like through Zoom. So I have 3 kindergartners, I have 4 first graders, I have 2 second graders, I have 6 third graders, I have 5 fourth graders, and I have 3 fifth graders. And if they stay enrolled, we are responsible to teach the Common Core to each one of those by 1 teacher. I just don't see that as a realistic possibility. I think what Scotty, well, I'll let Scotty go ahead.
I think one of our considerations is familiarity for the parents. I feel like these parents really have done for us all year, and I want to make this as easy as possible for them. And I think that my colleagues feel the same way. And after hearing them, what I think the easiest thing would be to continue on with this momentum that we have and to try to simulate it as much as we can. And I think that's why we're landing where we're landing. I don't know, Bill, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just feel like it's really important that the kids know this person who's going to be Zooming with them, that they don't have to make a new relationship, that parents don't need to make a new schedule. You know, these parents did this for a reason. They felt like, I think, and I'm speaking for them, but I've talked to a lot of them. I think they felt like it was a trade. Like, hey, my kids won't be in your school taking up space, and you will allow me the flexibility, let's say, to go to work during the morning and then work with them in the afternoon, or go to work during the day and work with them in the evening, things like that. So I really want to, it's my opinion that we should remain as flexible as we can for them, that we should really hear them out and try to figure out ways of making the last 7 weeks as productive as it can be for them, but also not, I don't want to change everything up on them. I just don't think that would be appropriate.
Yeah, just to follow up on what Scotty's saying, we're not talking about hiring a teacher for 39 days. We're talking about hiring somebody to help sign up and then to replicate the ability to give materials and to provide a person that if I have question on those materials, that they have a contact person. But they are not providing instruction. We're not allowed to provide instruction, because if they unenroll, it is the parents' responsibility for instruction. And as Scotty pointed out, parents and families have developed a rhythm. And in the letters that we got, one of the big commonalities was we want materials to keep the rhythm that we've gotten for the first 28 weeks. And so we had to work with the AOE just to even find out if that was possible. And we did find out this morning that it was, which was really good news. So just to cap on to what Scotty was saying.
Thank you.
All right, I only see one more board hand, and that's Ken. And after that, I'm going to turn it over to the parents. Go ahead, Ken.
I'm going to unmute first this time. All right. I'm a numbers guy. When we first started this going remote, and the kids pulled out of school and the parents said, okay, we're going to adjust our schedule so we can do it, keep the kids home. We were at about half the number in this county. I'm not even going to go statewide, because statewide would blow your mind. Statewide is like 20 times from the beginning of the school year, the number of cases that they're having across the state compared to what it was when we started school. When we decided that we were going to say, okay, that's it, you know, we got to do that air quality thing. We're not letting the kids back in the building, all that. Okay. So just to let you know, now we have kids in school. We've progressed from not being in school to the air being up to par, having kids in school, the elementary kids in school 4 days a week. So we're talking about one more day a week. But the number of cases daily in the county is 2 to 3 times more than they were when we first started the restrictions. Because we had that big peak come October, and it stayed up there, went down and up and down around the holidays. Now, you know, March is here, it's gone down. As I'm looking at it right here, it's down. And you can see that, you know, there's a little bit of fluctuation there, but we're still talking about more cases now in the county per day on average than when we put these restrictions into place. I'm not even going to go to the big peak things, because don't forget Easter's coming up in the beginning of April, and we have that April vacation coming up, and then we're going to send the kids back 2 weeks after Easter vacation. So, and that seems to be where everything is starting to spike. So that doesn't make any sense to me at all. I understand the state is pressing to get everybody back in school all day. Our elementary school kids are missing out 1 day a week in person. They're there 4 days a week. Approximately a little over 10% of the students are doing the school supported home study. And I know that's a real bifurcation for the teachers to split up and do, things like that. But they're doing it real well. They're doing it real well. We're talking about 39 school days. Let it ride out the 39 school days. Some of these kids are actually doing better with the curriculum being transferred from the teacher to the parents and the kids, that some of the kids are actually excelling better at home. Why change that up in any way? Why change that up? Who knows? Maybe we might have, as part of our future planning, a school supported home study program that might actually benefit some of these kids. Some of these kids are doing better remote. My daughter was doing better remote than she is going back in person. So I don't know. You look at the numbers. The numbers say we have more cases daily on average than we did when we started. We have new variants coming around. Anybody in the medical field will tell you. So, well, what does it look like in 3 weeks? They go, because they don't know. Continue the vigilance, keep masking, keep social distancing, keep all these things in place until everybody's vaccinated. I get it. We're vaccinating the teachers. That's great. The teachers are going to be vaccinated. That's great. That doesn't mean that they won't get it. It just means that they won't get as sick when they get it. Doesn't mean that if a teacher gets it and they're not sprouting a temperature and they come into school and teach a class, that they're not going to spread it. Especially with the new variants going around.
All right, Ken.
Okay. That's
Thank
all.
you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. All right. So we're going to go, I apologize. We're going to go to Mike, and then we'll go out to the rest of the audience.
Thanks, Al. I kind of wanted to try to wrap my head around what is the ask here? Like, what amount of resources is each family getting currently from their current teacher? Because I don't know. One parent shared with me and they said they have about a 15-minute interaction once a week. If that's true, then maybe that could continue. Maybe that was, I'm not sure what they're really getting. So like, can we figure that out? Like, what is each teacher giving to each family per week? Because I agree. It is the last like 40 days of school. Like if there's a way to, make this smooth for everybody, that seems like a good thing.
Mike, do you want to answer that question?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm going to defer to the principals because it's different in every place.
Okay.
Well, I can speak about my school. We've made an agreement with the union that there be a 30-minute Zoom on Wednesday mornings. I think that some of the teachers are going well beyond that because they know the kids and they know what the kids need, and also they'll keep the kids on and keep them social. I have in one classroom, I have a little girl who's been coming to math class for the last 2 months from home for the entire class every day, just because her teacher knows that that's what she needs. But I also know that there's some families who really can't. The rigidity of Zooms they can't do that, and especially the younger children, where like a kindergartner really requires a parent next to them in order to be effective in a Zoom, and that can't always happen. So we're trying to do the best we can to work with the families to figure out what it is that they want and need, and then we're trying to accommodate. But every week we're sending work home with families on Wednesdays, and then we're collecting the work the following Wednesday and correcting it. And that's happening across the board. I think that some like the teachers who teach the elder kids are much more effective in a Zoom meeting with the children on Wednesdays. And like if I look at a guy like Mr. Gragan, who he spends he says that his Wednesday is much harder than every other day because of the amount of time that he spends back to back Zooming with the children. I mean, I know he loves it, but it's a very rigorous day. So I would say that there is some variation in my school depending upon age and depending upon the needs of the kids and depending upon the numbers too. We have 2 groups have 6 SSHS kids, and like our 5th grade only has 1. So that is a factor as well, because if you're trying to Zoom with all the kids and you have 6, that's it's a bigger ask. So there is some variation, but again, we're providing work every week for the whole week. Most of my teachers are using either Google Classroom or another learning management system in order to get work across. But a lot of them are using emails and sending an email every Monday saying this is what your child should be working on throughout the week. Does one of the other principals want to add in?
Pam?
Sure. As Scotty said, we had a decision made on what Wednesdays would look like and what the responsibilities were for the teachers across the district. The teachers reach out on Wednesday. I personally send emails to all of the students and families on Wednesday, and students personally respond to me. I respond back to them with some sort of writing or some sort of prompt literacy activity. We use Google Classroom as the learning management system, and we also have some children who Zoom in throughout the week as well. But it is inconsistent with the families. Some families are more apt to join in and partner. Others much prefer deliveries of paper. And so it depends. It is somewhat sporadic with some families.
Thanks, Pam. How about you, Greg?
Yeah, both my colleagues are absolutely correct. It really depends on the family and the services and the needs and the sort of differentiation that we're already providing for the students. Kindergarten is much different from 5th grade and the amount of access that they need for the teachers. It also depends on how much family support is needed. So a family might be sending a lot of emails and asking for corrections right away and need some more support. And there are some families out there that we know who are very successful in this distance learning model and need less support, and they're sort of self-driven and self-motivated. So it really depends on the family, the student, and the kind of services that they're looking for. But Pam said it best. We all had an agreement at the beginning of the year that on Wednesdays, teachers would be available. We would post stuff to our learning management system, which we do at Townsend, and students and families are able to access that throughout the week.
Okay, thank you. I guess my other follow-up question is, so is it one position for each school that would have to bring somebody in for?
Our current design is we were thinking about having one person for each school. And again, we are talking like a couple days to get the families signed up for home study prior, so the next 6 weeks, and then 1 day a week to support the final 8 weeks of instruction similar to the Wednesday that's being provided now. So it would be, we're looking for people that are connected to the community already. As Scotty pointed out, we really want to make the smooth transition. So somebody that they know, it may be a teacher who wants to take on an additional duty. It may be a part-time employee who wants to have some additional time. It may be somebody who is the after-school coordinator. And because they know the teachers and they know the students, they could be a good conduit. So yes, currently, our design is looking for one person at each school that has a connection to the community for a total of 10 days.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Good questions. All right, now I'm going to get out to those folks that have been waiting for a while. So I'm going to go Shelley Bostrom, Renee, and then Samantha.
Al, could I just interrupt real quickly?
Yes, sir.
I think it'd be important right now. Our first letter we received was from Mr. Webb, and I think it encapsulates a lot of what we're talking about here. So it might be an opportunity for those people that took the time to send in a letter to maybe give some feedback before we go to the general public. I apologize for interrupting.
I was thinking the same thing, Bill, but I do see Chris on. So if Chris wanted to speak to it, by all means. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Shelley.
Oh, sorry.
Or Chris.
Yeah. No,
I didn't see your hands. I apologize.
Oh, yeah. No, I was actually in the other part of the room, just kind of listening in. This is very interesting to hear. It's nice that the action we've taken has spurred on conversation on how to accommodate in the event this gets passed, because we were feeling a little bit like we were being left kind of hanging for the last few weeks of school. Our preference definitely would be to figure out a way to keep it more connected so we don't have to go through the unenrollment process and all that. But it is nice to hear in the event that it gets passed that there might be some sort of accommodation to help us out, so we aren't just navigating it alone, because we would be a little bit lost if that were the case. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, so let's go to Shelley, Renee, and then Samantha.
Hi, so Chris is a parent of mine, and I'm glad he attended. I'm worried about the 8 weeks left with the continuance of curriculum, but it sounds like you guys have a plan for that, which I'm very hopeful for. And I'm worried about teachers still being responsible for curriculum, even if you hire someone. If you take our Wednesdays away and we're teaching 5 full days, I worry about how much we will still have to do on Wednesdays if we're not given that day. So I just hope that you keep that in mind. I also wanted to mention that kindergarten at Newbrook is more unique because we don't have a pre-K. So when I get my students back, because it's almost the end of the year, I have to do a just getting to know the school and rules and routines. And that usually takes like 6 to 8 weeks in the beginning of the school year. And now we're at the end of the school year. So it might be challenging, it might not be challenging, and we're going to get through it. But just wanted to put that out there that it might be a little unique.
It's all unique, Shelley.
It is.
All right, Renee, and then Samantha.
Hello. I'm an educator, and my son is in Shelley's class actually this year. So I just had a couple of questions, and maybe even spark some considerations for your future planning, maybe on Wednesday at leadership. I know the schools are doing, or at least some of them are doing their deep cleaning on Wednesdays. So I didn't know if is there a plan when that will happen, if that's not happening, if we'll be there on Wednesdays.
So we have incorporated deep cleaning throughout the year since about November. We bought our special machines. We hired additional people. So we don't need just a block of time on Wednesday to do deep cleaning. We do it throughout the week. We did consider that.
Okay, great. And I guess my other concern, as a lot of others, is space in the classroom and trying to, because the guidelines aren't changing. And so I know there's some classrooms that will be filled and maybe not have enough room for all kids to come back and being able to keep within the 3 feet. And I know there's creative solutions, splitting up classes. If that happens, the splitting up, I want to make sure that students are getting the amount of time they need with their classroom teacher or a certified teacher. If different groupings need to happen at the schools. So
based on our preliminary projections, we are not going to have to make any changes.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. Great questions. So I've got Samantha and then Allie.
Okay. So I would, you all have the letter that I wrote, so I don't need to talk about that, but I would like to point out a couple of things. One, when there's a lot of different reasons that we chose to keep our kids home, but when we considered the possibility of homeschooling and withdrawing our 2 children from the school, we were deeply and genuinely concerned that the school would lose money. And we made that decision based on that. And it wasn't until months later that we found out that that wasn't going to be the case. And at that point, we had started the SSH and just decided to stick with it. Understanding that we were supplementing the whole time. Also, and I just want to make clear to the board that as a parent, I am not worried or overwhelmed by the idea of withdrawing and homeschooling. I mean, we've essentially been homeschooling our kids the entire time. I'm just not happy that this decision is being removed, is being taken away from us without our consideration. I am happy that the administration has been considering us in the past few days and has been trying to come up with a solution that is appealing to me. But at the same time, I just can't see that there are enough pros to make this big change. I would also like to point out that we are in the throes of a global pandemic that has not resolved at all. And like one of your board members mentioned, I don't know those numbers, but he seems to be paying close attention that our numbers are actually higher. I just want to point those things out. And it's 8 weeks or possibly less, some of you have been saying. It doesn't seem to me, I just haven't heard enough evidence that the pros seem strong enough. I would also like to point out that I have 2 children enrolled in the school and 2 very different experiences, 2 very different kids. One of which has been crying for the past 3 days, really just worried and upset about this change for lots of personal reasons. And that's been really hard to navigate. It's been really hard to tell her. The only thing I can assure her is that, I'm here at this meeting to advocate for her because this is hurting her deeply on a personal level. So I just want you all to know that. Thank you.
Thanks, Samantha. I appreciate it. Allie.
Hi, guys. So we have a daughter enrolled in kindergarten at Newbrook in the home study program. Long story short, our 3-year-old son was diagnosed with leukemia. So we are in the life or death situation of we can't send our daughter. And we've gotten a routine down with the school supported home study thing. I wasn't sure with Scotty's stuff if the specials like the art and the music Zooms, would those still be accessible for kids that have to switch over to home study?
That's a really good question that we have not pondered that. I would think that that would be something that we could pull off. What I think we'll need to do is I'll probably need to, like, depending upon what the board tells us tonight, I'll need to figure out what the needs and desires are of each of the families and then try to accommodate them. And if music and art has been something that your daughter has, has appreciated, then that'd be something that I would try to accomplish. Again, like, having someone Zoom into a room is, it seems kind of doable. But I would really need to really check that out and make sure that it's something that we could do without stressing out the teachers and without that it wouldn't have any other fallout. But I feel pretty confident that we could pull that off.
Okay, yeah, because for us, obviously doing a home study program or homeschooling in general, it's very isolating and everybody has to be isolated to an extent at this point anyway, but that is the biggest social connection for the home study kids, is Zooming with their teachers, Zooming for all of the specials, the music, the art, the story times. That is our biggest connection. That is the only socialization that our child gets. And, getting the curriculum and stuff is huge for us. And so I'm appreciative that that would be able to continue, but really the socializing is the biggest piece that we would miss if we had to switch over to our own homeschooling. And I think it's really important that with the Zooms that she's able to have familiar faces. So when we do send her eventually, hopefully in the fall, it's not going to be this huge scary thing, because at least she knows, she'll see a familiar face of Mrs. Bostrom. She'll know Mr. Tabashnik. She'll know the art teacher, the music teacher. So it won't be quite as scary as it would be if we are to completely leave and not have those connections anymore. And like everybody else pointed out, there are only 8 weeks left, and you would be going back right after spring break, which people are probably going to travel, so it just seems like a scary, risky timing. And it's such a small amount of time in the big picture of things that it would make a huge difference for our family personally if we could keep going the way that we're going.
Thanks, Allie. All right, I've got Trish and then Keegan.
Hi, sorry to kind of put the other principals on the spot a little bit, but we've heard a lot from Scotty. Are we talking about the same types of personalized approaches to the parents that choose to stay home from the other schools as well? I feel kind of really on the fence about this whole thing. I'm not quite sure, especially with the returning right after spring break thing. That really is a little worrisome to me. So I would just love to hear from the other principals and just hear are the same types of personalized plans going to be able to be possible in a larger school like Townsend? Sorry, Craig, to put you on the spot a bit, but I'd love to hear what the other two have to say.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Trish. So I'll be having 7 students be school supported home learners. So, we have a smaller population, although we do have a larger population and enrollment at Townsend. Our homeschool support is only 7. I talked with a couple of families today. I'm still waiting to hear back from a couple, and Scotty said it perfectly. We're really going to have to figure out what the families are needing and wanting before we make a commitment about what we can deliver. And until I meet and talk with those families about what's important to them, what they think is essential, I'll have to just make that decision from there. But is it doable? Yeah. Will we try to do everything we can for all the students enrolled in our school? Absolutely. Logistically, can we pull it off? We'll try our best.
Go ahead, Keegan.
Oh, I think Pam was going to speak about what Jamaica does.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Oh,
Go ahead, Pam.
Sure. As Craig has said, we've just started our reach out to our families. I do have to say that this does concern me. There are a few families that have not engaged well throughout this process, not for the lack of our trying. And this does concern me, where if I could say we're going back to on-site school, that would provide a different direction. However, I think that by giving and providing the scope and sequence, curriculum, materials, and I also think continuing to allow our home study families to participate in events will show them that we are taking the safety precautions seriously. So I certainly don't want to lose any of the families that we have. I think each family is going to need to be handled differently in order to make sure that we're providing whatever we can to re-engage them, whether it's on site or in a different way. It's a very unique situation with some of our JVS families.
Thank you. Thank you both for that input. It's helpful.
Tinfoil.
Thanks. All right, go ahead, Keegan.
So I'm just going to share. I'm a remote teacher for my school district. I personally am overseeing the instruction 5 days a week through Zoom of 25 middle schoolers. At my district, each grade band has a particular teacher that's able to help offer those social emotional supports, connections to community services as families need them, because not every family has done their best, but it's been really hard for some families. And I would say that the district I teach in is no different than the district I'm serving here. I do wonder about what role, or is there a role for special education or for perhaps temporary 504 plans to be put in place for families that have medical pre-existing conditions that are precluding them from being able to completely disrupt what they're working on? Would it be possible for those temporary supports to be put in place so that the carry through can continue through the end of the year? I'm wondering about that. I'm also curious with if we're looking at the 30-minute Zooms on Wednesdays, this 3 school to home liaison positions, they're essentially only working about 10 days as the notes are that I wrote down. I'm wondering, has the conversation taken place where at a district level, you're looking at having those 3 positions of school home liaisons where they're grade banded? So you could have all kindergarten and first grade work within the district being done by one of those liaison positions, and then all second and third banded together under the purview of one person. Regardless of what school they're from, they would have one point person, but it would be district wide. Could that be a possibility? Feeling for the parents as a remote teacher, I was a little nervous when I heard the governor say, we're aiming to get back full-time in person. And that scared me. And it scared me for me as the person within those confines, but also knowing the situations that each parent and each family has had to come through to end up being remote for a full year or more. I'm trying to be empathetic, trying to understand. Yes, in-person instruction is better, but it sounds like there are some circumstances that even if this were a normal year, some type of homeschooling situation would need to be necessary in order for kids to access their learning. Regardless of a COVID environment, some kids will have compromised immune systems, and a flu could do serious damage to their bodies. These are just the things I'm thinking about. So I'm wondering, could the conversation or could a decision at like a district level grade banded position be happening if we're only talking, 10 days and 30 minutes kind of broken up that way? we're a district, the kids are going to be together eventually. It might be like neat to kind of build in that opportunity to kind of grow and develop. As a middle school teacher, all of the 7th and 8th graders end up going to our regional high school anyway. They're getting to know each other through Zoom. So these are just the things I was thinking about and wondering about.
Thanks, Keegan. Bill, do you think we can circle back to your recommendation again? It was about an hour ago.
No, it's been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah,
I think that it's really brought out all the different perspectives that are coming from different people and different situations. As I opened, I didn't make this recommendation lightly because I know it affects families, it affects people. I believe that we have thought through the positives and the challenges, that we have thought through how to provide support. I think at this point, the board really just has to decide whether they're going to accept my recommendation or not accept my recommendation. And as I like to say many times when I make recommendations to the board, I don't take any of this personally. I have worked with my colleagues. I try to make the best decisions I can, getting input and doing thought, but it makes no difference to me how the board decides to go forward. We're going to support our families, we're going to support our kids, and we're going to do the best work that we possibly can. But I do think we're at a point now where I just need to know which direction we're going to go forward on. We have to have time for these families. We have to have time for transition. My recommendation stands that I believe that we should go forth with this, but ultimately it's the board's decision, and I think we're at a decision-making point.
I have one last question for Bill based on that. Can I ask real quick?
Sure, go ahead, Keegan.
If the board decides not to go along with your recommendation, would this create an undue burden on the teachers within the district? Would they have to continue?
They would continue exactly as they are now, yes.
Okay, but they wouldn't be teaching full time then. They would kind of, as it has been, so shall it.
Nothing would change.
Okay, thank you.
They're definitely teaching full time. I can attest to that. All right, Ken, go ahead.
Okay. So we have a procedure put in place for this school year, and we're wanting to change it to go back full time. And my main question is, I understand that there's some kids that our elementary schools are in school 4 days a week, correct? I'm not losing reality on this, so we're only losing 1 day of in-person instruction for all students, correct? So we have a normalized school week for the kids. I understand they're home 1 more day a week, which should not be too traumatizing for a child to be home 1 more day. I don't see any reason to fix a year-long, how can I put this? A year-long decision to run 4-day elementary school 4 days a week and 1 day remote, with the specials on the remote day and class and so on, remote or Zoom wise. I don't see any sense, I'm not even gonna, it's not broke, don't fix it. I'm just gonna leave it like that. It's not broke, don't fix it.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
For this year.
All right, I've got Drew.
Good morning. I guess the first thing I would say is I would disagree with Ken and say it is broke. As a parent that has students at the elementary school level, or a student at the elementary school level, as well as 2 at the high school level, getting these kids back to full-time education is really, really important. And I certainly understand and hear from the parents that are doing the home-based school-supported education. Keep in mind that 90% of our students are looking to go back full-time. So we need to understand that there is 90% of our students that would benefit from following the superintendent's recommendation. I also want to point out that the data on where we are versus where we were is very misleading. A year ago, and I assume that most people know that I do work in healthcare. In fact, I'm doing a whole lot of public health work right now. A year ago, we didn't know a whole lot about what we were dealing with. We didn't understand this virus. We didn't know really how it spreads. We didn't know how to mitigate the virus. We didn't know a lot of things that we know now. We didn't have 3 vaccines that are almost 100% effective at preventing severe disease and fatality from COVID. So comparing March of 2021 to March of 2020 is a pointless exercise, in my opinion. But if you simply look at data and numbers, the governor is 100% right when he says that we've vaccinated and protected the most vulnerable components of our population at this time. We've taken care of the elderly, we've taken care of the homebound populations, and we certainly started the process of taking care of our educators, and hopefully we'll have them fully protected in a pretty short period of time. So we also have, and we decided to shut down our economy a year ago to protect our healthcare system and make sure that healthcare was eligible or available to Vermonters. And if you notice and you look at the numbers, our healthcare system, in fact, is doing quite well in Vermont. We're very strong with very few people hospitalized and a very significant capacity. When you start looking at COVID positive numbers in Vermont and trying to compare them, it's apples and oranges. We're not seeing severe COVID like we were a year ago. We're not seeing outbreaks in nursing homes resulting in deaths. These are very different things you're looking at. I would ask that the board seriously consider supporting the superintendent's position because it is what's best for 90% of our students. And I would also ask that you support the superintendent's recommendation to provide the extra staffing to support those homebound those parents that have chosen to keep their kids home, whatever that acronym actually stands for now. Let's get these kids back to normal as quickly as we can so we can get this kind of pandemic behind us. The data shows that we're doing everything right in Vermont. The data shows that the kids are suffering for not being in school. And whatever you can do to get these high school kids back, we've got to do. So I would urge the board to support the superintendent's recommendation.
Thanks, Drew. Really appreciate it. And if you weren't on earlier, I want to also say thank you for everything you did for all of our staff and on Friday.
Yes, great
through the
job.
weekend.
My pleasure.
Thank you. All right, Lindsay, did you take your hand down? I swear I saw your hand. You did. Okay. All right. I still see Joe.
Drew made my motion. I mean, he did. He you know, I want to make a motion to support the superintendent's recommendation to resume full-time in-person instruction, but also to urge that to, you know, direct the support, not only what you've talked about, but continue to explore the support avenues for the students that can't return at this time. There you go.
I'll
Bill, does
second
that
it.
capture it? Does that capture it, Bill?
I believe it does.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
And Lindsay, we've got a second. All right.
Hey, Al, can I interrupt and just ask a question? Is this for,
We can make it part of the discussion.
can you reinstate the question? Is this for elementary schools and the high school or just for elementary?
Good question. Joe, you didn't state that for elementary? Or
The recommendation is only elementary at this point, right, Bill? Until they change the guidance on social distancing, which I see the CDC is talking about now 3 feet.
This is a K through 5 recommendation, which would take
Okay.
place at Newbrook, Townsend, and Jamaica Village School.
That is what I understood. So yes, it's just those at this point.
Shelley, thank you for the clarification.
Yep.
Appreciate it. And we have a second. All right, and moving on to discussion. Would the motion makers like to speak to it?
I don't think there's a lot to add. There's a great discussion. I'm very, after seeing the letters, I'm really pleased with the response, both time and level, that the administration's already made in terms of addressing the needs of those parents and understanding that, it doesn't work for everybody. But, again, Drew made most of the points I would have made. We've been being asked for months about when we would return to full-time in-person instruction, and I'm excited that it's now a possibility to do this safely. Let's do it.
Thanks, Joe. Lindsay?
I think it's all been said. I would just like to reiterate again that I really do appreciate the administration, all of the administration getting together to come up with some real tangible solutions to making a good transition to those who don't feel comfortable coming back. And I especially the extended look at that, including social aspects and whatnot. So originally, a couple days ago thought I was going to be saying something differently, but I think it's absolutely wonderful that we are where we're at.
Thanks, Lindsay. Leanne, boy, I thought I saw your hand. You took it down?
Yeah, I did. Lindsay once again pretty much took all the words out of my mouth. I came in here with a completely different opinion. I was planning on voting the other way, but with the description of the support that the administration has described, I see that this could be a path forward to reopening elementary schools 5 days.
Thanks, Leanne. All right, Ken.
Okay, well, that's all well and good, and I really do appreciate all the forethought that was put into having support for these families to shift over and have somebody, a contact person. But as one of the parents had said, my kids see the teacher during a Zoom meeting. They see Miss Bostrom. They know it's Miss Bostrom. They see Mr. Tabak.
Ken, I think we lost you.
Is it just me or did he phase out?
Yeah, I see you and I see your hand, but
you see me and you see this going on.
There we go. Got you now. Yep.
Okay. Joe, stop messing with my Wi-Fi. No.
Hey, I'm not the host. I couldn't do it.
No.
Wasn't me, Ken.
No, I just saw Joe's picture showed up there when I was talking. So anyway, we have this the Wednesday Zoom thing going on with the art and music, and if that doesn't continue for these kids, you could say it's only 10% of the kids, but 10% is 10%. I don't care if it's one kid. If we have something that's working for the majority, this is the system that we put in place for this year. The governor and Dr. Levine turn around and are still saying, well, maybe we'll have that 4th of July picnic. Okay. So we're talking about the 4th of July. We're talking about April, moving things in closer. I already know how I'm going to vote on this. And,
okay.
You can say this March isn't compared to last March, and we know more, and, but now all of a sudden there's 2 variants. And do we know more about those variants that just came in? A little bit, but not much. These things develop. I also have a little bit of a medical background myself.
Okay.
I was an operating room technician for years. I ran a sterilizing department in a hospital for years before I came up to Vermont. So I do know these things. All right.
All right. Thanks, Ken. All right, I don't see any other hands. So if everybody could please bring up your video so we can take a vote here. All right. All board members are up. All right. All those in favor of the motion and recommendation, thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, 6. All right, we've got 6. All those nay. 1, 2, 3.
I'm on the fence.
Okay, I see 3 hands for nay.
I'm abstaining.
I'm
Okay, I was
abstaining.
just gonna ask. I'm sorry, Mike, you're changing that to abstain?
Yeah, I'm abstaining. I'm too much on the fence on this one.
Okay. Count I see is 6 in favor, 2 against, and 2 abstain. The motion carries. All right, thank you. So moving on to old business, HVAC workflow updates.
So we're continuing on the work on the great progress we've made. Really, our big focus right now is just finishing any work that had already been continuing through Alliance Mechanical. Our new Director of Operations, Greg Frost, is already working with Efficiency Vermont. They toured the buildings last week to be prepared for the new round of funding that's coming through. We learned last time that the faster we get actionable work to be done, the more likely it is to be approved. We want to make it as easy as possible for Efficiency Vermont to see the need and to be able to okay the use of that grant money. So that is really our big focus right now on HVAC.
All right, thanks, Bill. Anybody have any questions? No? All right, moving on. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of February 15th, 2021.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you,
Ken
Dana.
McFadden seconds.
I think Keegan grabbed it. All those in favor, thumbs up. Can't see Ken, but Ken, did we lose you? Leanne?
My video is clicked as on, but I'm not there.
Oh, are you in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, motion carries. And all right, so let's just do a quick little round robin with the principals report. If we want to start with Pam, Craig, Bob, we haven't heard from Bob, and then Scotty.
I just have a couple things I want to highlight. You have the document in front of you. Our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders participated in the Starbase Vermont for Kids. That's something new for me. So it was fun watching rockets get launched. And I guess it was done somewhat remotely. Usually it's an on-site thing, but we were pleased to be able to provide that STEM activity. And the other thing I did want to highlight through the use of a grant, the end of March, we have the opportunity to have an on-site consultant at JVS to work with our staff. It was mentioned earlier about multi-grade instruction. And so we had the opportunity to have an adjunct professor from Temple University, also educated at Teachers College, Columbia University, with reading and writing workshop. And so she will be at JVS for 2 full days doing demonstration model lessons and coaching with our 2 multi-grade teachers. So we're fortunate to have someone of her caliber join us at JVS. Thanks.
Thanks, Pam. Great.
Yeah, just kind of like a quick update on Townsend Elementary School. This past week, we had our first all-school celebration for our new PBIS school culture MTSS support. So that was pretty exciting. It was exciting for me because I got to go into each one of the classrooms, both pre-Ks, K to 5, and do a 30-minute art lesson with each one of the kids for directed drawing. So it was one of the better days and a Friday to boot for me. So I just think PBIS has made a really nice impact for us, especially when we're trying to come back in from almost a year of being out of school, and just having a school culture that is together and supportive and just really checks in with kids to see how they're doing has just been a real positive thing for us. So it was really nice to celebrate with the children and the staff this past week.
Thanks, Greg. Bob?
Hi, everybody. Just want to, my report is you guys have in hands. I've been pretty excited to have a lot of the HVAC stuff get cleaned up room by room at the high school and have more and more spaces available to us as we go throughout each week, which has been pretty cool. And we're making do with the spaces that we have pretty effectively. And yeah, looking forward to see what the spring holds as far as interesting distancing changes or other things that come down the pike. So we're ready and already thinking about the summer and the fall as well, around what those things could look like for us and how to spend all that money that you heard was coming your way.
I'm sure you'll figure it out. All right. And Scotty.
Hey, you guys, I just want to say thanks, first of all, to the families that came tonight to talk to us about this issue we had. I love working in a place where there can be activism that ends in good results for everybody, and that's all. I mean, Bill wrote me a letter. He's like, your parents are so well spoken and well written. Sorry, that's my dog. It's really nice to be involved in a. Stop it. Really nice to be involved and working with people who are able to express themselves, humbly and honestly and openly, and then get the results they want. I think that's really wonderful. I also want to thank Drew Hazelton. He and his crew if you're not aware of this, Rescue Inc. has been giving us all inoculations last Friday, and we're going to get our next one on April 2nd, which is going to enable a lot of us who haven't seen my dad. I haven't seen my dad in almost 2 years, and I'm going to get to go see my dad. And I just really appreciate what Bill and our nursing staff and Rescue did for us. I've been spending some of my time, I've been giving tours to kids that have been at home. I think it's really important for kids to visualize what it's like at school, and I've been spending a lot of time doing that. I also wanted to mention that Mr. Pat Mace is our custodian, and when the high school went back to in-person learning, we lost our second shift custodial staff because they had to go back to work. And Pat just picked up the overtime and just blazed right through it. And now we've got the problem solved, and we hired. But I just wanted to thank Pat. He's a quiet man, and he could go unnoticed, but boy, he is noticed, especially during COVID. He's keeping us safe and healthy, and I want to thank him for that. Again, Miss Chelsea Johns and Miss Hannah Parker are both filling in really important roles right now at my school. Chelsea Johns is our second grade teacher, and Miss Hannah Parker is our counselor. Both of them have really stepped up and really taken this on personally, and I wanted to thank them as well. Again, thank you for going with the superintendent's recommendation. I'm really excited to get the kids back in school and teach them how to be safe and teach them how to be healthy in this weird world we're living in right now. We don't know. We'll probably be in masks in the fall, so it's really important for our kids to learn how to do this stuff now. And again, I really appreciate the board's work. Thank you guys very much.
All right. Thank you to all our principals. Appreciate it. Did anybody have any questions? No? All right, moving on to the superintendent cabinet report.
So we provided you a written report, as always, just something to highlight. We're really beginning our recovery planning work. The Agency of Education has done a nice job setting up some pillars of things that we should be focusing on to support our students. Academic support, wellness and social emotional learning and student engagement. And our leadership team is meeting on Wednesday to begin that planning. We're also going to be creating a WCSU recovery planning team, which will be a conduit for what all the individual schools and districts are doing and how we can also work with the umbrella of the WCSU. Very excited to engage our professional colleagues in that work as we emerge going forward for the next couple of years. Again, as I said, S13 is a waiting study bill that I believe, Emily can correct me if I'm wrong, made it through crossover, which just means it made it through crossover. And there will be continued discussion, and I will continue to update you as those discussions happen. I know it's very important for this board to be aware of those things. I do encourage you to read the report. We work very hard on those, and we want to make sure that you guys are well informed. So thank you very much for the discussion tonight. As always, I very much appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill. Yes, and that was a great report, as always. All right, moving on to ComCom. Any update?
The only updates we have are the infographic has been updated and posted to the website, so folks are able to access the West River Education Google site to check out how all of the budget stuff shakes loose and how it impacts our local property taxes. Our leadership team, thanks Al, was able to draft a letter that was shared with both the Common as well as the Jamaica Journal. And it was also included in our school report, so that was great. Thank you so much. We have not set up a time for the leadership members to kind of host those coffee talks. I personally still think it would be a good idea to have a few open Zooms, but you know, it is what it shall be, I suppose. Looking ahead, we do have a couple of weeks where we could still set up a survey to collect any questions that are happening. I'll likely work on that this week, and if it's still cool to collect questions from the community that would be related to the information and budget conversation that's happening on the 23rd, I think we could easily kind of address those questions well before then. So that will be on my list, just making sure that it's okay before I develop a survey. Always looking for agreement because I wouldn't want to overstep my place. And then lastly, I would still love to have some time maybe in April after the budget business is over, definitely giving some time for Suzanne to talk about the new website, to introduce the new social media platforms. She has done quite a lot. And I think giving her the opportunity to share with our community the work that she's done to promote communications, I think is really important. So we've got that. So moving forward, I'm hoping to have the form, or I will have the form created and posted to the website so we can start to collect any outstanding questions, answering them, or, you know, categorizing them between now and the 22nd, preparing them for sharing on the 23rd, so that we can have a delightful voting experience on the 24th. So that's where we're at.
Well, I think that sounds great. Having the questions in advance, that would be fantastic. And actually might promote more participation. I've or others here as well have been to informational meetings where it's you and maybe a handful of people in the audience. So yeah, that'd be great. Love to have more participation. And couldn't agree with you more. The website is amazing. Suzanne is doing a great job, and I don't know if she's still on the call, but yeah, really appreciate it. Great job. And great job to you. Thanks, Keegan. Yeah. And everybody else on the ComCom. All right, let's see. Joe, do we have some financials to approve?
Yep. I was going to just make a motion to approve voucher number 44 in the amount of $206,069. Too many zeros in between the 2 and the 6 I know both Trish and I have reviewed the backup and signed the document and given it to Terry. So.
All right. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thanks, Mike. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none. All those in favor say aye or thumbs up. Out. There you go. All right. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. All right. At this point, Bill, we are wanting to move into executive session. We have a couple items. We have negotiations update as well as a personnel matter. So I will entertain a motion to move into executive session.
I've got that motion for you.
Thank you, Keegan.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Mike. And let's see.
There we go.
Combined effort. Didn't realize we needed like 2 keys nuclear.
Okay, so I want to make a motion that we ratify the master agreement between the West River Modified Union Education District and the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union boards, and to authorize and the Vermont NEA, and authorize the chair to sign on our behalf.
Joe, are there particular years that we're doing that for?
It's for the years 2020 through 2022.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Trish. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Thumbs up. All right, looks like we've got 100% unanimous. Motion carries.
And then I'd like to make a second motion to allow the superintendent to overspend the administrator line item.
Compensation line item, correct?
Compensation line item.
For FY22.
For FY22. Thank you.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dana. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, thumbs up. And unanimous again. All right.
Okay, one last thing before you go. Trish Scott is really good at recommending shows. So if you guys need any shows, she will recommend high quality stuff. I just finished 4 seasons of her last recommendation in like 8 days. So thank you, Trish. It's what keeps me up late at night.
What show was that, Bill?
The Last Kingdom.
Yes,
that's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, writing it down.
I'm
writing
watching
it down. I always need shows.
Major League Fishing. I'm watching all of 2020.
Money Heist on Netflix.
Oh,
all right.
That's great.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. I'm partial to the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Those are great.
Very good.
Those are
Very
great,
good.
Ken.
All right.
See Trish Scott bringing
All right,
joy to
one last
everybody.
motion.
Yeah, so just a reminder, we do have the March 23rd annual meeting and budget information. And actually, I should know what time that is. But
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Okay, and Zoom to be sent out or has already been sent out?
It will be sent out. I'll send it out. I try not to inundate you guys with double to double because then you guys get on the wrong meetings. So it'll come out tomorrow.
Okay, sounds great. And let's hear that last motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second. Keegan, second. All those in favor, thumbs up.
Yes.
All right, everybody have a great evening. Great work.
I
really
move.
appreciate it.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, y'all.
Yeah, eat all that corned beef, Ken.